You are listening to episode 164 of the Peaceful Mind Podcast. Welcome to the Peaceful Mind Podcast, a place for creating the peace of mind you need to be the best mom you are created by God to be. If you want to bring more balance, more joy, and more peace to your motherhood, this is the place for you. I'm your host, certified life coach and Catholic mom, Danielle Tienel. In the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I have a really special episode for you today. I don't usually do interviews, and today I am interviewing my daughter, Vivian. Say hi, Vivian.
Hi.
She is home on spring break, and I was talking with her about some questions I had that was going on inside her mind as a teenager. And I said, you know what? Would you be willing to go on my podcast and share this with other moms? Because I thought it would be really helpful and insightful to kind of get this real life inside perspective from a teenager. So thanks for agreeing to come on.
No problem. I'm excited to help some moms out.
Okay. So as you all know, I've mentioned before that I have twin daughters, and Vivian is my second child, I guess I say. We call her the middle child. She came out second. But just, do you want to tell everyone just at least a little bit about yourself, or at least how old you are? And
yeah, so I am 18. I'll be 19 in June, so coming up close. I'm currently a college student. I'm studying, hopefully, film. I want to be in the film industry. So, yeah.
So you're a freshman.
Yeah, I'm a freshman in college. That pretty much just sums me up. I don't know.
Yeah. But still, I was just like, you have the high school kind of era is still sort of fresh in your mind, and you've got a perspective of college too. Mm-hmm. But yeah, let's see what we can do to just kind of let me ask you some questions and see what comes up, and hopefully through this, my hope for this conversation and having this episode is to give moms like a little bit of empowerment about what might be going on and how they can better help if you have teenagers. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a couple kind of like personal questions at the beginning. I mean, not about you, but just about like,
you actually,
yeah.
You.
Just to see your thoughts about it. But here's the first one that I want to know. I want to know what it feels like to you, or what it's like to you, that you have a mom who's also a life coach.
Okay. Well, I definitely think it gives you this roundedness. I feel like it gives you this well-roundedness in general, but it also like sort of leaves two sides of you. I think there's definitely sort of like the working side of you, the one that, has the all the values that you've learned like fresh in your mind that you just like want to bestow on us. But then there's also regular Danielle who knows how to talk to everybody, and we just have a good time and everything. So I definitely think you definitely notice it. Like, I definitely think it's apparent that that's your job based on some things, but it's
based on some things.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, just yeah.
Okay. Well, here's what I'm really curious about and could be very insightful for my listeners. Do you recall a difference? Do you have about me of how I was like and how I showed up for you before I came to life coaching and became a life coach myself? And then now that I'm a parent who has these tools and different kind of perspectives on life that you just mentioned that I try and bestow on you all, not always successfully, but is there a difference between what I call like before coaching and after coaching version of your mom?
Definitely. Yes. No, for sure. Like, there definitely was the shift. I'm not going to say that before that you weren't like a normally negative person, but I would say that when there's sort of like an obstacle in your way, like in general, like you definitely have a different outlook on it, I would say. Like, there's a different approach that you took. I feel like the first time it was sort of like, like kind of how naturally anyone would react to like a bad situation. It would sort of just be like, kind of down in the dumps first. But I feel like you sort of analyze your playing field first and then you sort of attack it. I don't know. I feel like there's definitely a different approach to like problems, like whether that be just for you or for parenting. I feel like you just approach it differently. But I think before, like, there was definitely sort of this, not a negativity. I don't want to say negativity, but it was just more, I don't know.
Well, I think I know exactly what you're saying because, I definitely have a different approach to motherhood and how I show up in the world after I've learned these life coaching tools. So I guess one of the examples that comes to my mind that maybe you just, not recalling or don't want to say is I definitely openly share this with my clients is that before coaching, I was definitely more of a tense and yelling mom.
Yeah.
Right? Like, would you
agree? I would agree with that.
And then afterwards, like now, it's definitely less.
It's more the like, I'm going to pull the disappointment card as opposed to like, I'm going to like verbally like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just more of the like, But
I love how you said that, that I have a different approach because I think where I was so reactive.
Yeah.
Before.
No, agree. Like now it's like sort of like this more analytical, like, let me think about this first before I do blah, 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 blah. It was more of like your impulse, like what like naturally comes to you. Whereas like now it's like you sort of have that, I can like analyze it.
Okay. So this is going to be like a little school question here. And this has to do with one of my favorite tools in life coaching that I'm just so curious to see what you'll say. But if you could give me a grade, like using the school grading system. And I know it varies now a little bit from the numbers from like college. From
just like A, B, C, like is that what you mean?
Yeah, like what they're like, what a failing grade is and that kind of stuff. What would you give me?
Really put me on the spot here. I would give you like a B plus.
Ooh, okay.
Like if we're doing the plus minus system, I would say
we sure are.
Yeah, I would say B plus. Like,
okay.
I think, like, do I need an explanation? Or
well, first I want to say to my listeners out there, especially if you're not new, you'll know that what I was looking for is that when I'm helping moms be less perfectionistic, and I was definitely a perfectionist before I came to life coaching. But one of the tools, and you might not know this, Vivian, but one of the tools I teach is called B minus.
Okay.
Meaning, like, in this life, in this world, what we do, instead of always aspiring to be perfect, like say an A or an A plus or 100%, we want to just like make progress in our life and not get tripped up on being perfect because we are human and we're going to make mistakes. And so my new goal in life is to progress as if the things that I'm doing and accomplishing and how like even like showing up as a mom, that I attain about a B minus.
Okay.
And you just gave me a B plus. So so that's why I just kind of like chuckled a little bit because then that knows that I'm out there doing it. I'm out there trying. I'm out there like kind of showing up. So but yeah, well, explanation why I was like, is there any kind of part of me being your mom or what you would deem how I mother that would warrant an F, a failing grade?
Like if I were to, like what you would have to do for me to give you an F?
No, like is there anything that you would say right now, like, oh yeah, she definitely would get an F in there? Oh, and then maybe I should preface that you can't say anything about my cooking.
Well, you don't cook, so I wouldn't.
That's probably where I would get the F, right?
I guess. I don't like an F, like really fail. Like I wouldn't say like anything you necessarily like do a really like bad. Like I don't know. I think I would definitely.
Okay, you don't have to like search for something, but it's not coming easily, right? That there's something that you would think that I was a total failure at.
Like complete failure? No. Like I feel like every part, like nothing that you do is perfect. Like you said, you're human. Like you had said earlier, like everyone makes mistakes and, trial and error. I feel like I'm not a mother, but like, I can assume that it's like a lot of trial and error and just like trying things out, seeing what works and seeing what doesn't work, and sort of like through experience, you sort of learn things. So I feel like there's nothing that I feel like it'd go the other way around. Like you could also say, I don't think anything you get an A+ in either. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like you just, nothing's gonna be perfect, but nothing's like completely like failing.
Okay, so good. And the reason why I asked that question is because I want my listeners out there to know that, because a lot of moms that come to me feel like failures. Mm-hmm. Like they literally are down on themselves thinking, I keep trying, or I keep messing up, or I don't have a close relationship with my kids, or like I mentioned before, like I yell too much and all of that. And they literally come thinking that they're a failure or that they are failing. So they would believe that if they get a grade, that there are some things that they would get an F in. And I sort of wanted to ask you that question because I just wanted to show that I bet you most likely you can see that that's like self-imposed.
Yeah.
And that the kids wouldn't think, like your children most likely do not think that you are a total failure or that you are failing. Just kind of noticed out there, moms, that you're the one that is making that meaning, and it's optional, right? We can just go to more like, we're doing the best we can. And yep, I'm a human and I make mistakes sometimes, but thank goodness there's grace and mercy and forgiveness, and tomorrow's a new day, and all of that. So,
yeah.
All right. Okay. So now I want to change I want to kind of change it from me. I was just interested to just hear your perspective when you have a coach as a mom, because I literally, when I first learned all this stuff, I know that I was like wanting to teach it to all of you.
Yeah.
Right?
You still, it's not wanted, it's continued to want to
well,
teach. Not in a bad way, but.
Well, I've learned now more to, to not like, for me to just lead by example, right?
Yeah.
That's how I know it's best for me to teach you those principles. But now I want to turn the focus on, okay, like, so again, you are 18, almost 19, and you might have to just kind of go back a little bit and think about those beginning teenage years and in high school, and then now you have a little bit of taste of college. And I wanted to know, like, I'm looking for insights for my mom listeners to know, how can they show up more supportive for a teenager?
Well, I think it definitely comes down to listening, whether you agree or not. Like, listen, like, hear them out, let them speak, like, let them, like, vent if they need to, let them, like, just get it out. Because sometimes, like, maybe that was the first time that they had said those words all day. They didn't even know they were feeling it until they said it. Like, you don't know the backstory fully. So listen, even if you don't agree, and then sort of, I feel like I said, like, you don't have to agree, but it's like, make them feel validated, because I feel like the thing when parents, like you said, feel like they fail, it's because they feel like they don't really understand or connect with their child. But like I feel like with teenagers, it's very fickle. It changes, their opinions on things change and whatever. But as long as a parent just hears them out, I feel like that's a great start. I feel like that's just hearing them out, whether you agree or not. All
right. So what I'm hearing you say is that if a parent wants to be more supportive, your first kind of answer was, then we should listen more than we do.
I think it's listening and then deciding from there, based on what they said, like your next like term of action, I think. Because you can be supportive of a child, like of a teenager, but not necessarily agree with it. Like, you can support them, but it's like you might like, it's sort of having that judge-free mentality as a parent.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So you would want us to listen, and then if we don't agree, like,
still listen, but then like slowly be like make sure that you can tell that they acknowledge that you validate what they're saying.
Like, acknowledgement.
Don't,
okay. Yeah. All right. So what I hear you saying is kind of like when it, the brain is, when it hears what the child has to say, it might like do a little freak out on its side, but you're saying just listen.
Yeah.
Maybe like not interrupt, let them get it all out, and then
And sort of be the sort of, I see what you're saying and I get your point of view, even if you might like not fully, because the more like they just make it feel like validated, so that when you're then voicing your opinion, that it's like they don't feel like, oh, they didn't even listen at all. They didn't even try and understand.
So good.
So I would say that, and supporting, like listening is a great first step.
Yes. Listening, what I heard, listening and validating.
Yes.
What they have to say.
Even if you don't agree.
Even if you don't agree.
And sort of get those impulsive judgy thoughts out first. Just like let them say it.
Okay.
Let them say it.
Yeah. And here I'm glad you brought that up, because here I want to remind moms out there that your brain, there are a lot of things when we hear our kids say, we immediately go into reaction mode. Like I either need to fix it, or what they're saying is wrong, or that's terrible that they're feeling that way. I want to hurry up and help them feel better. Right. And some of the things that we will, like, brains just judge. Right. But it's one thing to have a thought, like a judgment thought about your child. And then it's another thing to actually voice that thought, like have it come into action. So this is where if we slow down a little bit and we're actually listening, that maybe we cannot go into like a reactive mode and be more like, have a chance, even if we have a judging thought, like that's fine. But maybe we want to choose to not voice that judging thought.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So tell me, what do teenagers really want from their parents when it comes to their, like, if they're stressed about something, like they're stressed or they're anxious? Because are teenagers stressed and anxious?
Yes. Oh, yes, I think.
And should we be worried about that?
A little bit. Honestly, I think I could say a little bit, because I think I notice it, like, even as you get older, like it's there. And I think social media, like I could go into a whole thing about that, is like a big cause for it just in general, because it leaves a lot of room for negative emotions, overthinking, comparison, like that kind of thing. But I think that when your kid is anxious, valuing their wanting alone time, I think, like, there's sort of that, like, when you see your kid is stressed and anxious, you want to, like, rush in and be like, what's going on? But sometimes they need that sort of, I'm going to go up in my room, in my safe space, decompress, like, sort of, like, not that they handle it on their own. I definitely think that, like, there can be person intervention, but it's just, like, don't rush to, like, fix it.
Okay.
Don't rush to fix it.
So if we were looking how we could best support a child, if we're thinking that you're stressed and anxious, and you're telling me that that's definitely part of the teenager's life, right? How could we best show up for you in that regard? And you said sometimes like honor that they need alone time.
I think it's also what I had said earlier about the validation, because I feel like there's sort of the, like, let's say, for example, like as an example, like you're anxious about a test. Well, sometimes maybe in this hypothetical situation, the parent is like, oh, but if you had studied, you wouldn't have felt anxious. Like, don't sort of try and find the cause of this anxiety, and sort of yes, you can try and find the pinpoint of like why you're nervous and why you're stressed about something, but it's like, don't make it sound blameful. It's like the tone I feel like is a really important thing.
Okay.
It's sort of like how you approach something, because the way you say something can very much like is impressionable on like teenagers, and like the mood that you say, the voice that you say it, like, because we'll overthink that. We'll take it to heart. We'll take it personally, tone wise. So just validating it once again, and not putting blame for what their anxiety is from, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. So
because
good.
everyone gets anxious, everyone gets nervous, everyone gets stressed. Like, that's normal. So it's like being there and just blaming and being like, oh, if you had done this, like, you wouldn't have felt this. Like, make sure you just come from a point of just understanding.
Yeah. What I try and emphasize that I have found helpful, and I kind of use on you all, but you might not know exactly the technique I'm doing it, is literally just for me to ask you more questions. Like, because instead of because parents want to go into the this is what you should do. If you do this, then you'll feel better. Or we do get worried and stressed for our kids, and we want you all to be happy. So it's natural for us to be like, okay, well, here's what we think you should do. right? But now I'm really leaning into, like, okay, tell me about it, Vivian. Like,
Yes.
what are you worried about? Or do you want to share with what's going on? Or
Yeah.
do you want to be by yourself? Is there anything that I could do for you at this
Right.
moment? I literally go into trying to get ask for your thoughts with questioning. Have you noticed that
I know that you do that. You ask questions. And I'm not trying to like discredit you, but I'm saying like wait.
Please don't do that.
I'm not trying to discredit you, but I'm saying like don't. I like what you were saying earlier about sort of like making it optional for them to say what they want to say. Don't like, because I feel like this sort of like, not interrogating, but it's like the question asking can feel like interrogating when you're under that stress situation, when you're in that pressure, like everything's heightened for you in that moment. You know what I mean? Your emotions are high. You're already like in a state of like frenzy. You know what I mean? So it's like having something probed at you can be very like I feel like if you want to have those questions of sort of like, how can we analyze the situation? You come at it when they've had that alone time, when when you've listened. If that makes sense.
Yeah, we keep coming back to this is definitely a theme, moms out here. We're hearing that Vivian is saying, listen more. Maybe listen more, talk less.
Yeah.
Is kind of. But I think with the line of questioning, it's coming for me to get to a place of empathy.
Yes.
Not a place of like interrogation. Like it's not like it literally is, I'm trying to understand you more.
Right.
That's the kind of line of questioning that I'm talking like, oh, tell me more. Like, oh, I can see why you would think that. And those kind of things.
It's sort of like being their hype man. But like, you know, if that makes sense? Like,
no, I have no idea what that means.
Like
is that a teenage term?
No, like hype, like to hype someone up. Like
but it's hype. I thought you said they're hype man. I was like,
hype,
what is that?
Hype man. Like hyping them up, like sort of making them like as if you were like I'm not trying to say like you're in the relationship of best friends, but it's like when you're hearing them out, sort of being there, like the comments that you make are not, why would you do that? Or like, you should have done that differently. Like, it's more like, I see that. But then once they've sort of dialed down that talking, that's when you can sort of put in your input and sort of have that supportive swoop in.
Yes. So good. Okay. Is there anything you would want as a teenager from us that would help your self-esteem?
Are we speaking like personal, like self-esteem? Or like, are we talking about like just in general?
Yeah. What are yeah.
Why are you looking at me like that?
Nothing. I just
self-esteem.
Or, you know, we can also, you know, use the word confidence.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I don't want to like repeat myself because I feel like there's definitely different ways you can look at it.
Why? What came to mind though?
It's just that sort of not coming from, like, I know like everyone's human and stuff, but it's just like not openly going in, like reacting like that, like excluding that sort of reactive, like your first thoughts on something, like just sort of like asking,
pause.
Yeah, like asking yourself, like, should I say that kind of thing? Like sort of think before like kind of you speak. I don't know how to really explain it, but it's just like
we take ourselves a time out before we dive into what we want.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just so important in general for becoming less of a reactive parent.
Yeah.
Is to make it a habit to build in pauses. Pauses when you learn news. Pauses when your kids say something that you don't like or you're viewing some behavior. Like what some time and a breather and a little think through will do before you approach and try and kind of fix.
Because that counteracts, because teenagers are reactive. Mm-hmm. Teenagers are the one that like they get those sporadic emotions. They get those like at first news of something, they freak out. Like that's, I feel like, the teenager's job. I feel like
and
you can't have two reactors.
Right, if we're both, and that's what happens. So we both
and that's
react.
human. Like that's normal. But it's just like, you know.
That's what I tell my clients. We're human and it's normal.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So any like challenges that you think teenagers face that we think are a problem, but really aren't?
Teenagers.
Yeah. It's like, so what's kind of like what happens with teenagers all around? Just kind of like make it sort of like a blanket stereotype Yeah. Is there any challenges or?
Well, there definitely are challenges. I feel like it comes from, I think we've talked about this before, but just like the world is way different than when you were a teenager. Technology is overruling the world. We went through a pandemic growing up. Like, I feel like there's a lot of things that we've dealt with that, yeah, like I'm sure like you can try and go back to relate to, but it's like, it's hard to really, really put yourself back in that exact position when our life is so much different than the 90s, 80s.
Is that something that you don't like when we say, but back when we were kids?
I don't know. Because then it's totally different. Like everything is different. Like, I'm not saying school is harder, but I'm saying like the way schools are run are different. The way like I said, like electronics have sort of become the new normal with things like social media parents didn't have. Like, you feel like you cannot make that comparison. Like, even though you might be like, oh, this is going to make them feel better because this happened for me. But in reality, like it's way different. So it's like that comparison and trying to parallel like what you were like as a kid, like it doesn't work the way that I feel like you think that it does. Not you specifically, but just in general.
Yeah. How can parents make you feel like respected more in general than maybe?
I feel like give teenagers the opportunities to make adult decisions and see sort of their, even if you like, maybe you're like, oh, they're not ready, like maybe they're too young, like sort of give them that, like not authority, but just give them that freedom to make decisions and sort of help them learn from their experiences, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like just use, just letting them make older decisions and more mature decisions than you might feel like they're ready for, I think, because then it will sort of give them like, oh, they think I'm ready. They like that validation that I was talking about.
Yeah. And what do you think that parents like are too controlling over teenagers about, and that in your opinion, they should be less controlling of?
Now, I'm very split about this because I have mixed reviews about it, but I'm going to say social media, because I think on one hand, it's like good to be, like, you know, forceful about, like not forceful, but just like aware of it.
Have rules
or
or boundaries.
And boundaries. I was going to say something that was quite profound and now I cannot think of it.
I'm sure it was.
But then it's like, at the end of the day, like, you guys didn't have social media. And I think, it's just sort of that thing where it's, you know how people say, like, oh, when you say something, the teenager does the opposite? It's true. I think it's true. You don't I don't think teenagers realize that they do it, but I think that it's sort of that, like...
They want to go against your parents sometimes.
Yeah, they want...
Even if you don't really believe it.
You don't even believe... Like, you don't realize you're doing it until you're doing it. So just know that, like... And I've seen this firsthand in college, that strict parents have very loose and... like kids, like it's sort of when they get that freedom, it goes south. So I would just say, like, not saying to be totally lax, but I'm just saying like rules are good, but it's just like, you got to find an in between because,
I can see this for sure.
When I've seen it firsthand, like going south. So
yes, because I want you to know, like that is hard for us parents, and to where that fine line. And of course there's different maturity levels and things like that with our kids. But I know, especially with our first kids who become teenagers, you know, that fine line of when we go out of you all needing us for everything to when it is time to let you spread your wings, have a little bit more independence, make choices for yourself. And I see that that's where a lot of the battles come in with my coaching clients when they're struggling with their kids, is of just knowing when is too much and when is too much of like rules and, you know, kind of holding tight to that. And yeah, it's just something that parents have to navigate.
It's another thing of learning by experience. Like there's no textbook way to do it because every family is different, household's different. So it's like, it's very much, doing it by experience and sort of just like learning from every time you try and enforce something, how it sort of ends up.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, is there anything, and that's a little bit on the spot, but is there anything else that you would want to like just share with us about a teenager's mind, or what they would want that you think to tell the moms listening that would help them become, you know, better at connection and relating to their teenager and just kind of strengthening the relationships they have with their teenagers?
I would just say that, like, going back in my teenager days, like, we are very sporadic. And I feel like we just want that emotional support. We want that, we want you guys to be there, but it's just, like I said, validation. And even if you don't agree with it, sort of, going through that route and just feeling listened to and like getting to that level of empathy, goes a long way.
Okay. All right. So thanks so much for doing this with me. It's so fun to have you and to work and to have at least somebody represented, one of the kids as a mom on the podcast.
Yeah,
but yes. Fun. So I hope you had a takeaway or two from my time here with my daughter, Vivian, and I will be talking to you again next week. Want to say bye, Vivian?
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Peaceful Mind Podcast. Are you ready to take everything I teach you here and put it to work for your own life? To really learn how to have peace of mind no matter what is happening around you? If so, I'd love to have you as a client. As your coach, this is where you'll get personal and focused time on your own mind using life coaching tools, concepts, and proven life-transforming wisdom, all through a faith-filled lens. To learn more about how we can work together, come on over to DanielleTienel.com. There, you'll see how to sign up for a free coaching consult and learn how to get started. Until next time, peace be with you always.